From the OUTV Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, California, this is Brief News Brief, a brief look at today's trending news topics, proudly combating the thought police since 2016. Here's your host, James Heaney.
I'm James Heaney, and this is your Brief News Briefing. And today's episode is going to be sadder than usual. If you can't take more depressing news, I'm not going to blame you if you just tune in next time. I promise to try to make it more cheery. We're going to start with the saddest news. Countless people are dead. I cannot count them, but anyone who was holding their breath for the Mueller report to be released is now deceased. Moving on to honest news, there is more sad news. Sad news coming out of Venezuela today, as the situation in the country continues to escalate and degenerate after the contested election of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro last month. Now, early this morning, there was an incident that appears to be the most violent confrontation yet. On the border where Brazil meets Venezuela, a group of civilians were attempting to keep open a segment of road for the delivery of humanitarian aid when they were opened fire upon by the Venezuelan soldiers. This caused multiple injuries and the first fatalities of a massive opposition operation meant to deliver international relief to this devastated country. The aid is coming from many nations, including the United States, and these nations have demanded that Maduro step down. Maduro's government has ordered a full blockade of the aid and dispatched the military to reinforce Venezuela's borders. Opposition leaders feared more clashes over the weekend, while volunteers plan to continue to try to bring aid over the border to these people that need it the most, people that are dying. Now, protests are planned in which the people will stay in the streets until containers of humanitarian aid come in. Tomorrow will mark the before and after for Venezuelans fighting to get back their democracy, said Edgar Zambrano, vice president of the National Assembly. There are calls for both sides to avoid violence, yet clashes could certainly hit ahead over the weekend as struggling citizens of Venezuela are fighting for their lives and their freedom. Vice President Pence, who is one of the administration's most forceful Maduro critics, is scheduled to be in Colombia on Monday for a scheduled meeting with the Latin American countries as well as Canada that have called for Maduro's ouster. Are troops pulling out of Syria as Trump had recently declared? It turns out no. Roughly 400 troops are going to remain there in Syria indefinitely, a senior administration official said today. This is a reversal of President Trump's plan to end the military mission against the Islamic State there. The administration seeks commitments from European countries as well as their own continued missions in Syria. Trump's withdrawal plan was very unpopular and has led to concern among allies and even triggered the resignation of Defense Secretary Mattis. The president abruptly announced the removal of all U.S. troops on the ground, which pretty much shocked everyone. Tens of thousands of militant fighters remain scattered throughout Syria and Iraq. The Kurdish forces dominate the U.S. allied Syrian ground force. Turkey considers the Kurdish group terrorists and has said that it would attack them as soon as the Americans left. So it was basically like, thanks for helping us all these years, Kurds. Rest in peace. Ouch. Even Lindsey Graham, who has in recent months been a staunch supporter of the president's ideas, said the complete withdrawal is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. U.S. military officials have repeatedly flagged what they see as a hazard of a hasty pullout. So it appears that Trump is finally listening to his own advisors now. Now, it's not quite clear who was advising him in the past to pull the troops out of Syria, since no one in the Republican Party seems to want that. Such a man of mystery, that President Trump. Who wanted him to pull out of Syria? Could it be Putin? A white nationalist named Lieutenant Christopher Hassan was apprehended last week while he was planning terror attacks that he hoped would spark a race war. According to the authorities, the 49-year-old lieutenant was a suburban father with a desk job, supplying Coast Guard ships. He was last seen by neighbors coming and going in uniform or walking his dogs with his wife. Just an ordinary dude, right? Nope. Total nutjob terrorist. He studied the methods of the Unabomber, the Virginia Tech gunman, and other extremist killers. He stockpiled guns and drugs. He drew up a target list of prominent cable news journalists and Democratic politicians that he was going to kill. His vision was to murder innocent civilians on a scale rarely seen in this country. Prosecutors say that for at least 2 years, Lieutenant Hassan had visited white supremacist and neo-Nazi websites and studied 1,500 pages of the manifesto written by Anders Behring Breivik. I think that's how you say it. He's that far-right Norwegian extremist who killed 77 people in 2011. Now, Trump had not voluntarily made any comments on the threat to the American people, but today he was asked about it in a press briefing following some trade talks with China. I think it's a shame, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office. I think it's very sad when a thing like this happens. I've expressed that. Court documents say that Hassan wanted to establish a white homeland and said, I am dreaming of a way to kill almost every last person on earth. When asked by a reporter on Friday whether Trump feels he bears any personal responsibilities from his own rhetoric, Trump responded saying that he did not. He replied, I think my language is very nice.